someone keeps reminding you how honest they are, do you actually know what they're doing? Yes, it seems harmless, maybe even reassuring. But behind that repeated declaration, there's something deeper that most people completely miss. It's one of the most psychologically loaded things a person can do. And if you misunderstand it, which most people do, you could be giving your full trust to the one person in the room who's working the hardest to take it from you. Let's start with what constant honesty declarations really mean. So why does someone keep telling you they're honest? Most people assume it's simple. They're just being transparent. They want you to know where you stand. End of story. But here's the thing, if someone is genuinely honest, they don't need to announce it. Honesty is demonstrated through consistency, through patterns of behavior over time, not through verbal declarations. The people you trust most in your life, the ones who have never let you down, how often do they tell you they're honest? They don't. They just are. So why does this person keep saying it? Because words are cheaper than behavior. And if you accept the word as proof of the thing, they never have to prove the thing. Robert Greene wrote about this in his study of power, that the most effective deceivers don't lie constantly. They build a reputation for honesty, then exploit it. The declaration is the foundation. The exploitation comes later. And by the way, if someone who used to make these declarations suddenly stops and starts acting instead of talking, we'll get into what that shift really means at the end. And it's something most people wish they'd understood sooner. Have you ever noticed that someone makes these honesty declarations right before they tell you something you're not going to like? Right before they criticize you? Right before they ask for something? Right before they say something that, if they hadn't prefaced it with, "I'm just being honest with you," would feel manipulative? That's not random, it's calculated. Here's what most people don't realize. When someone announces their honesty before speaking, they're not just setting context, they're preemptively disabling your defense mechanism. Psychologists call it credentialing, the act of establishing legitimacy before making a move that would otherwise trigger suspicion. It's the same mechanism used in social engineering. Build rapport first, exploit it second. Think about what that framing actually does. It turns your critical thinking against you. If they've just told you they're honest, and now you feel skeptical about what they said, you're the one with the problem. You're the one being paranoid. You're the one who doesn't appreciate honesty. The declaration doesn't just establish trust. It makes distrust feel like your failure. This is also why you'll notice this pattern most often in relationships with significant power imbalances, workplaces, family structures, early-stage romantic dynamics. The declaration lands hardest when the other person already has something you want or need. Ever wonder why the most powerful communicators in history almost never talked about their own integrity? Maybe it's the diplomat who only spoke through action. Maybe it's the negotiator who built agreements brick by brick. Maybe it's the leader whose word was trusted precisely because they never needed to defend it. That pattern isn't random, it's strategic. Here's something that might surprise you. The need to declare virtue is itself a signal of its absence. This goes back thousands of years. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals that the person of genuine character doesn't seek recognition for their character. They simply live it. The moment you start advertising a quality, you've already revealed that the quality is something you're uncertain you possess. Well, watch how this plays out in real interactions. If they say, "I'm an honest person," before telling you something, they're asking you to bypass your judgment. If they say, "I've always been straight with you," when challenged, they're deflecting accountability. If they say, "I'm just being real with you," before criticism, they're weaponizing honesty as cover for cruelty. The declaration is never neutral. It always has a purpose. And hey, if this is making you see honesty declarations differently right now, smash that like button and subscribe. It's the best way to help us reach more people who actually care about understanding the psychology behind everyday social dynamics. Does the person declare their honesty before giving you information, before asking for a favor, when they've been caught in something, or constantly and unprompted? Each of these is telling you something completely different. Let's start with the pre-information declaration. This is the most disarming form. They're about to tell you something, and they front-load it with credibility they haven't earned in the moment. "I want to be completely honest with you," and then they tell you half the story. The declaration makes the omission invisible. Now the pre-favor declaration. I wouldn't ask this if I didn't genuinely care about you, and I want to be honest. I need your help. That honesty framing is doing emotional work. It's transforming a request into a moral moment. Saying no now means you don't appreciate honesty. What about the caught in something declaration? This one is the most revealing. You know me. I've always been honest with you. Said precisely when their honesty is in question. The appeal to a track record they're manufacturing in real time. And then there's the constant, unprompted declaration. The person who brings up their own honesty when nobody asked. That's the strongest signal of all. They want you to carry that framing in the background of every interaction, so it does its work before they even need to use it. Have you ever noticed that you start self-editing around someone who constantly declares their honesty? You become more careful about what you challenge, more hesitant to question their version of events, more likely to absorb their criticism without pushing back, because they told you they were being honest with you, and disagreeing starts to feel like ingratitude. That's not a coincidence. It's a behavioral shift they engineered. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about things. The honesty declaration is a judgment installer. It doesn't change the facts. It changes the frame through which you process the facts. Researchers studying social compliance found that pre-established credibility, even verbally self-asserted, significantly increases acceptance of information that would otherwise be questioned. Think about that for a second. Your entire willingness to think critically about someone, built from years of learning how to protect yourself, gets quietly overridden just because someone told you in advance that they were honest. You didn't verify it. You didn't test it. You accepted the word and let it do the work of a track record. And the uncomfortable part? You probably didn't notice it happening. Ever had a moment of real uncertainty? A decision you weren't sure about? A relationship that felt unstable? And noticed someone ramp up the honesty declarations right when you needed clarity most? That's not a coincidence. They knew you were looking for something to anchor to before you even said a word. People are legible. Micro-signals in body language, shifts in vocal tone, changes in response speed. They pick up on all of it. They don't know every detail of what you're going through, but they know something's off. And that's when the declaration hits hardest, because the thing you need most right now is someone you can trust. And they just told you, with complete confidence, that they're that person. And here's where it gets even deeper. The longer you've known someone who operates this way, the more they've been gathering intelligence. They've learned what reassures you. They've learned what makes you lower your guard. They've mapped the moments where you're most susceptible to the word honest. And they deploy it there. Not in the moments when it costs them something. In the moments when it benefits them. They notice. What does it mean when someone who has been constantly declaring their honesty suddenly stops? This is what I mentioned earlier, and it's something everyone needs to understand. If someone has been making these declarations for weeks, months, maybe years, and they suddenly stop talking about their honesty and just start behaving differently, don't just accept it, question it. People are creatures of pattern. When they break one this significant, they're trying to accomplish something. Sometimes the reason is strategic. They've recalibrated. The declarations were working in a context that no longer exists. Maybe you've grown more skeptical. Maybe the relationship has shifted, and a new approach is needed. The silence itself becomes the new move. Other times it's need-based. Something changed in what they want from you. The honesty declarations served a specific function, and that function is temporarily on hold. Watch for what replaces them. And sometimes it's the most cyclical pattern and the most damaging. They've used the declarations to secure your trust completely. They no longer need to maintain the performance. The foundation has been laid. What comes next is the withdrawal, and if you don't recognize the structure, you'll spend the withdrawal period wondering what you did wrong. The Stoic response? Marcus Aurelius wrote that the clearest vision comes from looking at things as they are, not as we wish them to be. You are not obligated to trust the declaration. You are allowed to wait for the evidence. In fact, the person who asks you to trust their words before trusting their actions, they've already told you the most important thing about themselves. Because that constant declaration of honesty, it was never accidental to them, and it shouldn't be accidental to you either.